As someone who's a big fan of AP's Royal Oak, specifically the 15202, I was really excited when Casio released this watch. So after a while, I decided to pick it up so I could check it out for myself if it's up to the hype. I know a lot of people have been buying these at a little bit above premium when they're harder to find because, quite frankly, it's a really cool design. Now today we're going to be taking a look at the full specifications and the full review of this watch. We're going to find out whether or not you should pick it up and whether or not it will live up to the hype. But first of all, guys, welcome to the channel. My name is AB. I run the Watch Collecting Strategy Productions, and in today's episode we're going to be taking a closer look at the Casio Oak. Of course, I'm going to be giving you guys my opinions and the full specs and the full review of this watch in today's episode. So guys, without further ado, let's move on with the review. So guys, in my personal opinion, I feel like everybody should own a G-Shock in their collection. Having a watch that's absolutely indestructible, I feel like that is something that you would have to experience to understand why it's nice to have that one watch that you could wear and just not worry about it. There's a lot of watches out there that are very robust, for example my Rolex Submariner, but sometimes I do worry about banging it around, whereas the G-Shock, specifically the one I own, the DW5600, was indestructible. It just doesn't get ruined. It could get scuffed up a little bit, but it's very tough for you to ruin a G-Shock. Today I wanted to showcase to you guys one of the best looking G-Shocks out there, and quite frankly the most wearable G-Shocks out there. I'm going to give you guys all of the dimensions in a second, but let me tell you guys why I feel like this watch is very globally accepted. The fact that it's AnyDigi, the fact that it's about 11mm thick, I feel like that contributed a lot to the popularity. Of course, the fact that it kind of has that Royal Oak homage look to it really helped the watch, but it is a very good looking G-Shock. Approximately 2 years ago, I wasn't a big fan of G-Shock. To be honest, I wasn't a fan of 50mm watches. They were just too big in my opinion. However, I feel like that has to do with the fact that I used to only collect vintage, but that's not really the case. I just felt like they were way too big. Which is why today's watch is very exciting. The dimensions of this watch, I feel, is very wearable to most. Now, despite this watch not being the most complicated G-Shock out there, it still packs a lot of punch. The watch has a world timer with 31 time zones and 48 cities. The battery life has approximately 3 years to it, and the watch also has a stopwatch, approximately 5 alarms, a full calendar all the way to the year 2099. The watch is also AnyDigi, which in my opinion makes this watch look absolutely stunning. This is not the first time G-Shock made an AnyDigi watch, but in my opinion this is the best looking one they've ever released. Now, protecting the module inside is G-Shock's newest carbon core guard structure that basically protects the watch from impacts, damage, and cracks so that it could protect this module inside, and quite frankly, it's nice to know that they made a G-Shock even more robust than it already was. Now, the watch features a completely matte case. Quite frankly, it's finished exceptionally. It gives it this very cool matte aesthetic, and quite frankly G-Shock have been doing it for such a long time, so I didn't expect any less, but nonetheless it has a very beautiful finishing to it. One thing I really don't like about this watch is the fact that they had to put that big G-Shock on the top and protection on the bottom. I feel like if they removed that, it would have looked a lot cleaner and a lot nicer, and they already have the G-Shock logo down on the dial, so I feel like it was quite unnecessary. It would have looked a lot better in my honest opinion. Now, focusing closer on the dial, you can see that I went with the matte black with the white version. I know the popular one is the all black, but I wanted something a little bit more legible. If you want legibility, I would go with this model. And one thing that was a pleasant surprise to me is in most pictures this watch looks like it's black and white. However, the finishing on the indices is actually a dark gray, which looks a lot better with that matte finish. Quite frankly, it didn't look as great with the black and white, but in real life it's actually a kind of matte silverish finish, which looks really good in my opinion. Now we're going to take a closer look at this dial. Now I did want to mention to you guys that the naked eye cannot see at this level, and the issues that I found with this watch, you won't be able to see it without a macro lens or a magnifying glass, but I just wanted to mention that before we get on with this dial because I did find slight issues with it, but overall it wasn't that bad. The overall quality at a macro level is actually quite amazing, especially for the price point. The only issue I found was with this hand right here, and you guys can see the hand has rough finishing, but that's just such a small issue, especially with a watch at this price point. It wasn't really that big of a deal, but I did notice it under macro, so I wanted to mention it to you guys. Now the dial also had very minor dust particles and foreign material, but you can barely see it even at a macro level, but I just wanted to mention it because I did see it. Overall, the dial is exceptionally done, especially at that price point. Now one of my favorite things about this watch is actually how subtle that digital display is. They made it so well, and the dial is extremely symmetrical in my opinion, especially with that day on the left side. It kind of reminds me of my JLC Master Geographic, so I might be a little bit biased, but I absolutely love it. I feel like G-Shock did a fantastic job making this dial extremely symmetrical despite it being kind of complicated. So guys, let's talk about the most important thing about every watch, how it actually feels on the wrist. Let's start off with the dimensions of this watch. This watch has a 45.5mm case, 11.8mm thickness, and a 47mm lug to lug. That means from top to bottom. And quite frankly, the fact that the watch is 47mm lug to lug, it makes this watch wear a lot smaller. Dare I say it wears like a 41mm watch. Don't get me wrong, the watch is big at 45.5mm, but if you know G-Shock, this isn't necessarily big to G-Shock standards, but it definitely wears way smaller. Now if you're a guy with smaller wrists, honestly don't worry about it. The one thing you have to worry about usually is the lug to lug, and at 47mm it will fit any wrist just fine. In fact, even Royal Oaks tend to wear a lot smaller, and that actually has to do with the octagon case. Obviously G-Shock didn't pioneer this case, and they definitely got that inspiration from the Royal Oak. Nonetheless, the octagon case makes the watch wear a lot smaller. Even at 45.5mm, the watch wears like a 41, and it has 47mm lug to lug, so it's wearable to any wrist size in my honest opinion. So the question is, would I recommend this watch if you're considering the Casio Oak? My answer actually might shock you a little bit, but I'm actually gonna tell you guys to wait, because I feel like Casio is gonna come out with a steel version of this watch. Actually, I'm almost sure they will. And if you really want that Royal Oak inspired watch, I would wait for a steel version, and if you're crazy enough, maybe wait for the gold version, because I feel like those models are going to be really cool, and as soon as they release, I highly recommend picking them up right away, because I'm kind of predicting, and this is just a prediction, that it's going to go up in price and they're going to sell out really quickly once they come out with a steel version. But honestly, if you're looking for a Royal Oak kind of homage, and of course G-Shock is very reputable and the design is really cool, just wait for the steel version. I'm sure you're gonna love it. I'm sure they're gonna come out with a steel version, especially if they have that black dial with steel. That would be absolutely stunning. Personally, I'd pick one up, but if you just want that G-Shock feel, of course go with this watch. It is a great watch. So guys, before I end this review, I actually discovered something, so I decided to add it to the video. Something that I absolutely love, and I can't wait for aftermarket bracelet makers to make really cool straps for this. As you guys can see, they added a quick release spring bar system. Now the reason why this is really exciting is all you have to do is just pull that tab down and you can remove the bracelet immediately. The DW5600 I had was very hard for you to take off the bracelet, but quite frankly with this new system, I can't wait for new strap options. I might go a little crazy and add a white strap. I think that would look really cool for the summer. At under $100, this watch honestly is unbeatable and I highly recommend it. But guys, thank you so much for watching. First of all, I would like to invite you to subscribe to the channel, but I also wanted to invite you to a little group we have on Slack. Slack is an app where we have a little forum going on, and we just talk about watches. We have a lot of really cool collectors over there, influencers, and we just talk about watches over there. So make sure you send me an email. I'll send you a private link so you could join our little watch forum. We're capping it at about 50 members, so make sure if you want to, send me an email ASAP. I also wanted to invite you to join us in the Watch Talk podcast. We have a live stream going on, me and Guy from the Just Bluefish channel, and it's a really fun way to just interact with us. You add your comments and we see it and we talk about it live. We also have a podcast that we're going to be linking down below, so make sure you check it out. And finally guys, thank you so much for watching. Hopefully you enjoyed this review. Let me know what you would like Casio to do in the future. Personally, I would absolutely love to see them come out with a steel and a gold version, which I'm pretty sure they're going to do. And guys, thank you so much for watching, and I will see you in the next one.